So they're going back to what they call small group training. So that's basically going to be groups of a maximum of 5, limited number of staff, no entry to the buildings, no showers, no food. Everything you take for granted normally won't be in place. So it'll be small group training. They turn up in their kit, their own water bottles, their own suntan lotion, etc. Drive in, park X meters away from the next person, train, out they go. And it's really as basic as that. So in terms of safety, that's where we are. The hard bit is the progression to contact training. But hopefully I think we'll get 2 weeks of this. Hopefully, touch wood, all goes well, and then see how we progress.
And how can I put this delicately? There's been a lot of conversation in the media in recent days about people who may not be comfortable, people in the football industry who may not be comfortable with those arrangements. What is the status of that with you and the rest of the players? No,
the doctor, if I could say one point, the doctor at the club, Dr. Ahmed, has been outstanding from day one. He's been ahead of the curve. He's given the players and staff so much reassurance, information very early, great advice. So that's been really helpful for us. And the players have been, been transparent right the way through. We've given forms for any concerns or questions to be answered. And Touchwood we're in a really good place. The players are happy. They all had their testing on Friday. They're all good. See the kids in the background. The boys, they're all good. And the staff tested. It's not just players. We always talk about the players being the most important. In this situation now, whether it's the youngest staff member, the oldest staff member, the youngest player, whoever it is, it's about making sure safety is right. So I think we're in a good place. A lot of good work's been done by a lot of people. And hopefully we can now move it forward and see how the next 2 weeks unfold.
First of all, sorry for putting you off mid-answer, because yes, my kids appeared on screen because they're very excited to see.
How are you kids? All good?
That's George and Lily waving back to you. What I was going to ask was, what is the procedure? What's the view on players who may not be comfortable, and if a player ultimately doesn't want to come back?
At the end of the day, you have to respect someone's decision. It's not just about the players. I don't think a player or a staff member is going to say, I am personally concerned. It's more a case of what you're taking back and who you're going back to, be it children, be it elderly, be it in a vulnerable high-risk category, etc. We've got to make sure that they are fully comfortable. The testing is being done twice a week. Cynics will say, well, you could be tested on a Monday and then catch it on a Tuesday. I understand that. Nothing's going to be perfect. We've got to make sure from our point of view that everything is done to reassure them and make them feel comfortable coming to training. If someone has an issue, I hope they would have read it by now, but also we have to respect the decision and stand by them and help them.
I don't know if, Flo, were you going to come in there?
Yeah, hi Mark. A bit different to how we usually do things in the tunnel after games, but good to see you. You're looking well. I was wondering, how do you sort of kind of motivate the players now when coming back after such a long break? And obviously at the very top, it's quite clear for, Leeds, West Brom and the like, what they need to do for the rest of these games. Obviously we're within, touching distance of a potential playoffs, but how do you say, guys, look, it's not just about finishing the season, which is the pressure from FA, EFL, whatever, just to get it over and done with. What's your target now on the return?
I think the target is every time you pull it, I don't want to sound really corny and use old cliches here, but every time you pull the shirt on, there's got to be a pride. They're professional athletes and they want to do well and they go to work. The reason they get paid more than the average person is they go to work and do their job in front of thousands of people on a normal basis. And that's why they do they get what they get. So from that point of view, they've got to have a pride about what they do at work. Now we are, from QPR's perspective, we're mid-table, we're 6 points off the playoffs. We've got, every game is tough, but we're in a good run of form. We have good players and a real belief in the squad. So we have to give it our best shot. There's 27 points available. We have to go for every single point. That's what every manager will be saying the same. Every athlete has been away in an environment that's really alien to them. They're used to team interaction, working every day, the banter, the social side of football, working together, driving together. Now they're at home running on the roads on a 5K training run, for example. So really different. They want to get back. They want to get back to what they know. Our job, Flo, is to tell them that what they know has now changed. The normal landscape that we all know in every business will have changed, or will definitely change. So it's them adapting to the new landscape really well. It's not about highlighting problems. It's about finding solutions, because any player, any staff member can say, this is that, and this isn't good enough, or we never used to do this. That's irrelevant now. The world has changed. So that desire to get back, that desire to get the points on the board is all part of their professional makeup. They're hungry athletes who want to do well for themselves, selfishly, and for the club, of course. So get the balance right, highlight what we need to do, and we should be in a good place.
Marcus Paul here. I kind of wonder, does it help when the press are quoting certain players, not our players or whatever, as not wanting to train or be involved? How would the clubs look at them sort of players? Will they get a choice whether they play or not, or is it just like all for one and one for all kind of mentality? So in other words, is the press helping with quoting players as being worried and scared?
I think what we have to realise, Paul, is that the press, media, TV is crying out for content, and it hasn't got content. Normally the pages are filled with a build up to games, the review of games, post-match, all this. They have no content. So therefore they're going to jump on anything they possibly can. So there's obviously a story there. And as I said, every club, I'm sure, every manager, every CEO, director of football will respect the fact that a certain player may have a different view. He may well have vulnerable parents at home or a high-risk child, or we have to respect it. Simple as that. Is it ideal? No. One team might lose 4 or 5 players, key players. Who knows? All I can do is look after our own ship here, and our players have been really well documented about what's going on, how to prepare, what to expect, what we're doing about certain issues, how we're confronting problems, and they're in a good place right now. What happens going forward, Paul, I don't know, but the media is going to jump on any story, and that's why in such times you've got to be very, very careful what you read, what you believe, what you buy into.
Mark, how are you going to train over the next couple of weeks? Because like you say, you can only do small groups, and they've been away for, 8-9 weeks now. So how does the next 2 weeks look? How do you train a football team when you can only have 2 or 3 of them together at the same time?
Great question. I mean, all it is really, the first we're back in on Monday, Wednesday and Thursday of this week, because again, they've been off since the 13th of March. So we had like 10 weeks off. So in terms of, you can't bring them in and batter them from day one. That's not the way you go about it. You have to, otherwise we have a medical room full of players at a time when the medical staff are wearing full PPE and can't really touch them. So it's a case of easing them back in. The first 3 days will be some generic ball familiarisation, hard work, but nothing overly excessive. And then second week we go to 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, which will be more position-specific work. So we can do, fullbacks crossing for a forward to finish or defender to clear, etc. More passing drills in certain areas of the park. So a bit more specific to their positions, but still we need the move to contact training, Clive, because without that, you're always, there's only so many passing drills. There's only so many moving patterns you can work. The players will want to now go to the next stage, but go back to Paul's earlier question, Flo, we've got to make sure it's safe for them to do so.
Hi, Mark. It's Chris. How you doing, mate?
It's all good, thank you. You?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Is it your view that we need to finish this season come what may, even if it eats into next season?
Absolutely, 100%, Chris. I've got to be honest, I apologise, get me off my soapbox if I start having a rant. I cannot understand how we talk about starting something without finishing this season that we're 80% through. I compare it to being asked to build an extension by a builder who gets 80% through and then stops and goes and paints a bathroom. Finish what we've started, and it's really important for the integrity of the game. And I don't understand the rush for next season. We could go through to the end of August. Health and safety have to be the priority. I understand TV broadcast and contracts. We all understand that. We don't know the details of them, Chris, but we understand they're very significant. But the fact is that if the health is a priority, do it right. Do it right. So I think we have to finish this season for integrity throughout, and then decide on, for example, how long is the break? Do we have a summer break? I'm reading that the end of August marks the Champions League final, Europa League final, and then the Premier League will start on the 12th of September. Are we really going to have that situation? And if so, why? To try and fill in next season. There's got to be pain. We've had a global pandemic. There's got to be pain somewhere. And everyone talks about taking pain, but no one wants to take it. So for me, it's next season. Now, do we go, for example, January to the end of October and get onto Qatar's schedule that in 2022 allows us to go naturally into a World Cup? Does that mean we have a summer break for the Euros, for example? So we have a winter, we have a summer break, and the players will be in mid-season in great shape, as opposed to being the end of a season. They'll be in great shape to go and compete in the Euros next summer. There's an option, and people go, "Oh, it's ludicrous. We never do that." We've never had COVID-19 before. So we've got to try and find solutions. So I think for me, finish this season, give the appropriate break. Do we have a window is the next question, Chris. Well, how do you have a window? How do you spend money when you're furloughing staff, pay cuts, job cuts? It's immorally, for me, reprehensible to even think about spending money in a window if you've been that type of club, which 95% of the clubs have been. So again, do you need time for a window? Do we finish at the end of August? Give September as a 4-week off season, give October as the pre-season, be it condensed, and start again November the 1st, for example. I don't know, I'm just saying we've got to find a solution, but we must surely finish what we started.
So I get that as the football manager, I get why you would want to finish the season and the players want to finish the season. There's been things that have come out this week in the lower divisions about there being points per game and potentially 51% of the league can vote to call the league off. I know your opinion is that QPR should finish the season. Is that QPR's opinion as a whole? Would we vote to continue or would we vote to stop if it came down to it?
No, guys, certainly in the Championship, all I can comment on is what I'm privy to in terms of the Championship. There's an absolute energy to finish the season, be it from CEOs, owners, managers, coaches and players. There's no doubt about that. Everyone I speak to, you'll read 1 or 2 clubs are keen to finish. And I'm not being rude to any clubs, but it's not about self-interest. It's got to be about for the good of football. And it's easy for, you can say we're sitting here and touch wood, we're safe and we're in a good position. No, it's not about that. It's self-interest has got to go out the window, club, right now. So I think there's a real desire in the Championship. And I understand in Leagues 1 and 2, when you have whole departments furloughed, the moment you bring them out of furlough, you have to write checks. So at the moment, the pain, I'd imagine, and just my opinion here, the pain isn't as acute as it's going to be the moment they come out of furlough. So there's no rush to get them back in League 2 and League 1. But you have big clubs in League 1, the Sunderlands and the Portsmouths, etc. These are big clubs pushing hard. So I understand there's a lot of division, a lot of debate rather in League 1. But for the Championship, everyone I've spoken to has been consistent in wanting to get the league finished.
Mark, my question on the whole debate around the phrase the integrity of the competition, and that finishing off the season, you have to have the integrity of the competition and therefore finish off the season. But isn't it compromised beyond comprehension anyway? The players have had teams that were on a run are no longer on a run. Players that were injured are no longer injured. Certain players, you may have teams, particularly in London, for example, that may have a number of players that don't play because their families have been harder hit than teams from other areas of the country. So even if it comes back, isn't it? This is what I'm struggling with as a fan. Isn't it compromised anyway?
It's obviously the situation we're going through now in terms of the virus, COVID-19. Everyone uses words like unprecedented, and then doesn't really react or respond in that way. It is unprecedented. So therefore, we are going to face imperfect scenarios. As you rightly, everything you just mentioned there, fully agree with, fully understand. But we're over 80% through an event. So, okay, then we're going to move straight into next season. When do we start? The same problems are faced. What happens if we then have an outbreak in November when we're 4 games in? What do we do? What happens next season? All of these questions we cannot answer. So in my mind, I understand if we were 50% or less through this season, I would absolutely agree with the fans' view of null and voiding it. We're 80% through. You have questions to ask. Yes, someone mentioned Leeds and West Brom, Forest, Brentford, etc., Preston, Bristol City. We're in it. We have 2 or 3 good wins. We're in it. You have the relegation situation where I also think if we go back to football now, the fans, you tell me if I'm wrong, the fans and everyone involved in football is desperate for the games to come back. Do we go back to the start of the season, which is a slow burn, or do we go back to the excitement of relegation, promotion, playoffs, etc.? I think for the good of the game, go back to where we left it. That's my honest opinion. I understand your view, but for me, I feel very strongly that we're 80% through now. We've got a responsibility to finish this season, and the pain for me is next year. So for you as fans, you said, right, we're actually going to finish this season in October. November's going to be off season. December's going to be pre-season, and we start in January. And January is going to be a condensed season. It's going to be you play each team once, and you may play every 1, 3, 5, 7 away. Every even you play at home. And at the end of it, we have an MLS-style cup. If that's what we have to do, David, for 1 year, and you know the format, the fans, I think, buy into it. That's where our pain is. But there's got to be. Everyone says to me, "Oh, you know, it's difficult. I don't want that idea. We've never done that before." But we've never had a COVID-19 before. So for me, where do we feel the pain? In my opinion, I'd rather finish this season and feel the pain next season, or make long-term adjustments, i.e., January to end of October, summer break, get on schedule for Qatar 2022.
Mark, you may not be able to answer this, but is it your understanding, as it stands, that the 9 games we've got will be played in the order they are, or will we get new fixtures, or do we not know at the moment?
No, there's no confidentiality there. As far as I'm aware, we go back to playing Barnsley first game and finish with West Brom. That's as I understand it. So, I mean, whether that's changed at CEO level or above, you know, without my awareness, that could be the case. But I think our CEO Les has been very transparent, great communication. So, as far as I'm aware, our first game would be Barnsley.
And again, really difficult question, and like you say, immoral in a way. But you know, that's football. You will have had plans for the summer of players that may have been going for money and how that money might have got used. What sort of planning can you do for that now, or is it just completely up in the air?
Listen, they're great. They're good. They're very sensible questions. They're very direct questions, because it has to be. I mean, we would normally now be doing our pre-season training camp, you know, players, our targets, our recruitment meetings, everything that you know about as fans and football people. But that's up in the air. You could have a team might have a player valued at 10 million in January who's now valued at 4. That's the harsh reality. You know, because, and again, what about the clubs that have used those players for assets on their balance sheet? You know, yeah, we've got a 25 to 30 million pound asset. No, you haven't. He's 15. Or no, you haven't. He's 8. And it's that type of scenario. Players who are valued at 4 might be valued at 1.5 now. And they have massive implications for the clubs. So my comment previously about transfer window, I stand by. I don't know how you furlough staff and that. And therefore, you're targeting loan and you're targeting out of contract free players. So then fans go, get him, he's out of contract. Yeah, if he's out of contract and there's no transfer fee and he should be on $6,000 a week, the agent wants 10. You know, the agent now, you hope, is understanding where we are in terms of the world right now, the new landscape, financial landscape. Many of them don't go, so therefore they come in and there's always a price to pay with a free player. Because in the agent's world, he's free. It would normally be 3 million quid, he's free now. But it's yin and yang. So yes, you may lose on one hand. So you might have a £3 million player that is now worth 1.2, but the £3 million player you were going to go and buy is now only 1.2. It works both ways. So all I can say, I'm not really answering your question. It's just a case of feeling it slowly as we go along. That's all we can do. You know, if a club sells a player, how much do you sell him for? How much of that can you utilise to go onto player recruitment? How much has to go?
There has been a worry on this, and something that we've talked about on the podcast in the last few weeks, which is, I suppose, as fans, we were, rightly or wrongly, may have been inaccurate, but I guess we were preparing ourselves for Ebere Eze to maybe not be here at the end of whenever the next window is. But on the flip side, if in that scenario, the club would be getting a good fee. Is it possible now that there is a perfect storm in place where not only do the players get devalued, but also clubs are forced to sell them at that much lower value? And so in that scenario, they end up sending their best assets at a lot less than they might have done otherwise, because they have to sell them at the end of this.
Yeah, I'll answer the question, but if I can, not from the Cupid. I don't want to come out and say Mark said about Ebere Eze. I'm not. I'm saying about clubs in general. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. My big fear is, if you are one of the buying clubs, if you're a big Premier League club, certainly there has to be an opportunity. You know, you look at, no one's talked about Brexit and British players and the value, etc. That can work in the other way and be a counterbalance, David, as well. But no, there's no doubt that you could lose players below their assets. Clubs will be forced to sell. You know, deferrals and wages and for everything else that comes with it. At the moment, there's no spectators coming through the turnstiles. There's no revenue coming in. So yes, in answer to your question, but also, as I say, the flip side of that is, yes, you might lose out on your player you're trying to sell, but also the player you're trying to buy becomes a third of the price. So there is a yin and a yang. It's just making sure you can try and trade well. And also the rubber, the green's got to go your way. Simple as that. You know, there's some very good players out there. If there's a market for them and there's a bit of an auction, then hopefully the price is not too badly discounted. If there's not, and a club has to sell, and another club knows that, they're going to come in with a really low bid. So I think it'd be a tough time for many clubs, but you have to be very careful how you pick and choose.
Mark, can I just step outside the current situation for a little bit? You mentioned Berriese. How good is he? I mean, people like Graham Souness have said he could walk into any top 6 side in the country. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I hope you understand. I'm nervous to talk about one player because it's about the squad, and we have a lot of really good, talented players, young and old. But I've been quite clear about Abire. I'll always, for me, yes, he is a top 6 Premier League player, and those type of comments can't be said loosely, because the level of those type of clubs, of players you're talking about, a global recruitment network. But I see a player that's still only 21. I see a player that's got a fantastic attitude and character, 2 good feet, powerful athlete, plays the game, manages to play the game at his pace. Can almost look lazy and slow sometimes, but that's just because he creates so much time for himself. So no, I see a very, as I say, it's not about one player, it's about our squad, but I see a player there who could go to the very highest level of the game. I heard Graham Souness's comments. I know Graham, and I totally agree with him.
Mark, can I just go for the tabloid type question for the headline?
Yes.
Have you been doing DIY?
Me?
Yes.
That?
Indeed. Yep.
No, that's my wife asking me to look after a wine glass, and the wine glass snapped and cut my thumb, basically. That's all. If you've seen any effort of me doing DIY, you would not want me anywhere near at all, babe. All I'm going to say.
I saw your plastered thumb on the club's Twitter feed yesterday, and I thought, I won't ask that, but I'm glad you did.
Honestly, I'll be honest, the only good thing about me is I know I'm awful at DIY. Other people think they're good and they try. I know I am awful, so therefore I don't even attempt. I can mow the lawn, I can paint a wall, and that's about as far as it goes.
Mark, I was going to say, you're someone who's obviously used to life without football, because you came into the game a bit later than some other coaches. So what have you been doing during lockdown?
I mean, obviously it's been very different for us. You try, and the LMA, the League Managers Association, are outstanding. They're our union. They are out. I can't say how good they've been. Daily briefings, webinars every week, some outstanding people on the webinars. So that the educational side goes on. You read, and I'm not trying to sound like an anorak, but you read, what you think relevant books to help you. And you plan. I'm sitting here with books and things around me and pads, because we have to make sure we're ready for when we do come back. But again, you don't know, you do all the sessions and then you do small group training, for example. So you do what you have to do. You do your daily walk, your 10K walk every day, and try and keep yourself fit and keep the weight down, and do that. And also, you have to just you have to enjoy some family time. So you're out of the house, normally you leave the early hours of the morning, get back late, have a rush dinner, get on the phone, and that's it. So it's actually nice to spend some time with the family. And as I say, it's just a shame the golf courses were closed. But other than that...
When we chatted to Liam Kelly, it sounded like he was really struggling and really missing football, really kind of longing to get back there, and was really frustrated about the situation, as we all are. But he sounded like he was a little bit kind of, I don't want to say miserable, because that's not fair, but he found like he was struggling with the situation. How have the club been trying to support players, I guess, from a kind of psychological point of view? Because this whole situation is hard on everyone, but especially for footballers who are so used to having such a strict routine, and a lot of their kind of life obviously revolves around one thing. When that one thing's taken away from you, it's very difficult.
It is. I've got to be really careful how I answer this. I'll explain why in a minute. So yes, I think you've got to talk to the players. I'll speak to players twice a week and call them, and John will call, and the doctors and the medical guys who try to rotor it and speak to them. As you rightly say, professional players are used to being told what to do, what time to report, what to eat, where to go, where to be for massage, analysis. We travel at this time, the hotel, there's your room number. They're told what to do. And when you speak to players retiring from the game, that's very hard for them, because it's a complete change. And this is where I've got to be careful. I don't want to, the players are good guys. The world is facing a challenge. I don't want to sound like an old man either, but I do get very frustrated when I read about the massive problems being faced by footballers, because without being rude to some players, they're on thousands a week. And I think for me, the pressure is, if you can't put a roof over your head or food on the table, that's a different proposition. So I'm always really supportive of anyone facing an issue. Our job is to help them to the best of our ability. but I'm reading more and more about footballers, and I think the image of the game is all important to supporters. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but when I keep hearing a guy on 40 grand a week is struggling because he can't play football, and I'm reading about people losing their businesses and 9,000 laid off and 12,000 BA, and I think we've got to be really careful as a game how we cover that area. I don't want to be controversial there. I just want to be honest.
So all of us as well, Mark. I don't think you get a lot of disagreement here. You mentioned we were talking about Abire Eze, and you mentioned we've obviously got other, very talented players, some great young players at the club at the moment. Sorry to be the one to ask again, but contract negotiations with a couple of them were progressing before all of this. Ryan Manning, Bright Asay, Samuel. Is all of that on hold now? Does this make it more likely that they would stay, or?
No, they're good questions. They're right. If I was a fan, I'd be asking the same questions. So I've got no problem with that. And the best policy is always honesty. Simple as that. We want to keep our young talents. Of course we do. The club, Leslie, etc., will offer what we think are absolutely the right level. The question is, if your player that is due is worth X a week, let's pick a number. I've no idea what the number might be. Let's say 5 grand a week. You're due 5 grand a week, but QPR can only afford 3,750, for example, and that's genuinely what we can afford. The player's got to decide. Do I want to be at QPR working really hard? We're a team whereby young players get a chance. Hopefully, we're playing in a way that they can show their talents and their attributes, and my move might come further down the line. Or do they say, no, I'm worth 5, I'm going? At that point, you have to say as a fan, as a manager, as a staff member, we only want players who want to be at the club. I'm not talking about Ryan or anyone else. I'm saying that has to be a policy in general. You've got to stand by the squad. And I want people who always want to be at the club I'm at. If we're at QPR right now, you want to make sure everyone wants to be there. So I'm trying to answer your problem. I'm talking too much, but you've got to make sure that you offer the right level. That's the key. If someone's worth 5 and you can afford 5, but you offer 2, that's different. But you've got to be very, very careful. And the market has moved. Have no doubt the market has moved. And if a player at a low Premier League club was due 30 grand a week before the virus, I think he's now looking at 15, 18. Right. So
I think that's what I was wondering whether that 375, your hypothetical figure, 375 that might not have been attractive 8 weeks ago, a longer contract on 375 might now be more attractive than it was.
Yeah, maybe. And again, everyone will be different. Every agent, I speak to agents, Clive, and sometimes I'm speaking to someone who's watching a completely different world to me. Now, I could be wrong. Put your hands up. It's about opinion. We all have opinion, but some agents don't get it. If they're advising their players that now's the time to move from various clubs, where you go. If you're moving for £1,000 a week to everyone in the street, that's £50,000 a year. But to a player with a short career who's going to uproot his family and move the other end of the country for that, I've got to question it. But if that's what they want to do, then you have to say, good luck, and we move on. And there will be a lot of players available. I keep reading 1,400 players available. How many of them are at the right level for a championship club like QPR? They've got to come in and impact us. If not, we've got to try our academy kids, surely.
Mark, what's happening to the players whose contracts are up out at the end of June, but we will probably be playing over that period? What has anything been done on?
Yeah.
I know I've explained that badly, but I think you get the
gist. No, not at all. No. So you have that 1 month grace anyway, which takes us through to the end of July in terms of payment. And UEFA and FIFA have come out and said that what denotes the end of a season shouldn't be a set date, but should be the final game of the season. So hopefully common sense and a good ethical behaviour will mark it. Of course, players might have agreed moves. Players might be wary of injury. Go back to your earlier comment about integrity. There's all these different factors, but you hope very much that clubs stand by a fairly moral code, I hope, as well. I'm being offered players. Say he's ready to come. He's ready to come now. I said, we've got 9 games to play. Yeah, but he's ready to commit to you guys. I said, do you not think it goes for our players as well? It works both ways. So I hope very much that we get through that through UEFA and FIFA's guidelines, through the legal side not being a major impact. Let's get these 9 games done. And hopefully all contracts are validated after that point.
Mark, that's a real worry, if I'm being honest, as a football fan, that you've got what you just said about agents, that they're actually seeing this as a chance to make money. I just think it's really sad in the game. It reflects badly in the game. We need everyone to be together to show that we all come out of this strongly. That must be really frustrating if agents are going behind and unsettling players with this season still to go. I just can't believe that. It's outrageous.
Paul, don't get it wrong. There's a lot of good guys as well. There's a lot of really good guys. The trouble is, sometimes you've got to really break it down. If it was your son, for example, and he's 22 and he's done really well and he's on the cusp of a good move to go from $3,000 a week to 10 grand a week, or from 10 grand a week to 25 a week, and the agent's on your doorstep and you're the parent, what are you thinking? Now, are you thinking, no, now's not the time for that? Or are you thinking, this is my son's time? So there's two sides to it, and they've got a responsibility to look after their player. I understand that. But I'm with you also that right now, it's almost morally irresponsible in my mind, reprehensible to be looking at that side of it. But you have to respect the fact that's their job, I guess, and they're going about trying to do it the best of their ability.
Mark, just before we go, regardless of the current situation, you do seem to have a good group of players there. You seem to the guys that have been on the podcast all seem to be very modest, even the ones that everyone's shouting about. It seems like the QPR and the community are doing really good work. You must be quite happy with the setup there. Is that a fair comment?
No, it is. I've said. Do you remember my comments at the start after a couple of games? I said how well the guys had gelled together and worked hard at that side of it, and it doesn't come easy. They've really responded well. We tried to get a good mix of seniority and young ones and a mentoring role, and the guys have gelled. I can't speak high enough of them. I'm not saying that loosely. They're an outstanding group of characters, and they work hard, and they generally want to do well for the club. So really, really pleased with that side of it. Undoubtedly, the community do great work. Andy Evans and his team. You go to some clubs, you see it, and they say they're good, but they're not. QPR are generally, from what I see, heavily involved in the community, well respected, do some outstanding work. So no, it's a really good club. It's a really good club, and everyone told me there's a core of support at QPR, which is like solid. Wind and rain and snow, they'll always be there. I think our job, and I put in my programme notes, our job is to try and increase that core. If we can get the players working hard and the fans can see the players, you have good days and not so good days. But if you can go and see the team always give 100%, then hopefully if we can increase that core by 1,500 fans or 2,000 fans, then we're doing a good job. So that's got to be our main focus. All the community work, fan base, good players, and hopefully increase that core number.
Sorry, just before we go, one question. Sorry, everyone else.
That's all right.
We'll let you go.
No problem.
Have you been aware of our ex-player, Joey Barton's obviously comments about what happened in Scotland? And now that he's a manager, was that out of the blue, forgive the pun, or did you see that coming?
No, I woke up one morning and my phone was jumping. If you don't know the Scottish media, Paul, it's unlike any other. It's intrusive beyond belief. So having had 2 years at Glasgow, you get to know that. So my phone's jumping around, and I said at the time I was not going to get drawn into a playground spat with anyone, let alone a fellow manager. But I just voiced my disappointment that a fellow manager should indeed make such derisory, derogatory and nonsensical comments of that nature. So I'll leave it at that, but take what you will. But I've never heard so much nonsense in my life. But as I say, I won't get drawn into a playground spat with him.
Well, we're doing this interview at 10:54 a.m. and I have a feeling that it has to be much later in the day and we have to get a lot more alcohol down you to get other sort of answer from you.
I've got to be honest, I love a glass of wine, but there's not enough alcohol in this world to get me to... You know what, all joking apart, especially in Scotland, you get drawn into that type of headline, there's no upside, I promise you. And I don't think anyone can understand what the Scottish media is like. And I did 2 podcasts for Sue the Big.
And the social media as well. The social media of those fans is beyond madness.
I will get 5 messages on here today. 2 will say you snake for leaving, even though you're sacked. That's 2. 3 will say, how did you lose a cup final, you Southern? And that's just but yourself, it's a 1% minority. 95% of the fans are outstanding and really good. But the media is so different. I get drawn into a spat with Joe Barton, it would run for days and days. Not because I'm important, far from it, just because they look at the content. They look at the content, and that would be it. Warburton calls Barton this. Barton responds by... we're all hopefully better than that. So in answer to the alcohol, I'm not sure how much I'd have to drink to give you that feeling.
The thing is, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm from a wee place called Belfast, and the Celtic and Rangers thing is a wee bit of a big thing. Totally lost on me. Not interested one iota. I suppose I should support Glasgow Rangers, but I can't be arsed. No offence to Glasgow Rangers. I support Queen's Park Rangers, a much better side in my opinion. But that Goldfish Bowl is amazing. But I went to the Euros with Northern Ireland, and my mate Alan, and we're sitting down talking to Rangers fans, and they're saying, "Who do you support?" I go, QPR. They support Rangers, blah blah. And then they said to me, the first season you guys went up, they said, "He has to win the treble or he's out." It's like, Jesus wept. Talk about pressure.
It is, honestly, I don't want to. If we're in a pub right now having a pint and you can talk about football and supporters, if you haven't been to an Old Firm game, you've got to go. You have to go, irrespective of just because it's unlike anything else. But it is that the pressure and what it means. It's a different level of passion. I always thought I'm a Tottenham fan. I was born in Tottenham High Road, so I'm a natural Tottenham fan, not fanatical. That's my team. But I always thought Tottenham Arsenal was one of the biggest games. And you think Man U Liverpool or Leeds Man U, then you go to Rangers Celtic, and it's a different. And what it means, the build up for weeks to the game, and then the come down. If you win it, it's for days and weeks afterwards. If not, it's just a different level of passion. And as I say, it's not being derogatory to Southern supporters, but it is everything. Their whole life is the game, and it's. You get to Ibrox, I'd get at 9 o'clock. There's 50 fans outside at 9 in the morning, and there's 5,000 by midday. And then you just see them pouring 50,000 with thousands outside. It's a different level. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but the media side of it, and I'm sure Flo will know, the media side can be brutal. When we played Celtic we beat them in the semi-final. Ronnie Dyler, if you remember, the manager of Celtic, it was legal. You should have got, if it was down south here, any manager, coach or player would have gone legal against the papers what was being said about him, but they get away with it. And as I say, it's unlike anything else, and you've got to experience it. And then you come down south again, you realise, what was that Goldfish Bowl all about? And then the moment you get to go back in it, you're just totally sucked into it, Paul.
The weird thing is, Mark, I would ask Joey Barton what it's like to play in an Old Firm match, but he never turned up. There you go.
As I say, there's many things I could say, but I'd rather reserve a little bit of dignity, just a little bit anyway.
I don't think you're getting anywhere, Paul. So I think we'll leave it there. And after 40 minutes with Mark, I think we better finish anyway, because you're making those of us in PR realise that you know more about PR than us. I think you're making the people in finance realise that you know more about finance. People in content, you know more about, you've got a better handle on content than the rest of us. So you're making us all feel inadequate.
No, far.
And you turned up with and as a florist, you turned up with a florist injury as well, which is a cut finger. Well done. You covered that one as well.
If only, yeah. That's my claim to fame, then, Paul. I'm in trouble, but no, it's just I like talking to people. I think, all joking apart, I've said to Paul Morrissey, the more transparent we can be as supporters, the more information we give you, the better it is. It's your club. And I'm amazed. And, go to Glasgow Rangers again. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. You open a can of worms. Give the supporters more information. We're not giving you our team. We're not giving you the tactics we're going to play against Barnsley, but give the supporters more information. And that way, I think you have a better club. So hopefully that'll be the way going forward.